Welcome to The Sandbox with Justin Peters, connecting you to the ideas and tools to improve your life. Now let's go. Hey everybody, welcome to The Sandbox. I'm your host, Justin Peters. The meaning of this podcast is to be your introduction to self-improvement. And there's a lot of things you could be working to improve. It could be your mindset, your health, relationships, your career. But today we are talking about finances, or for the half of the population that says that wrong, finance. I really don't get that. But all kidding aside, one thing I don't really joke around too much about is money. I think money is such a powerful tool, and simply a tool at that. Money for most people can be a really sensitive topic. But if you're not having conversations around it, you're really missing out, because I believe you're not gaining and learning about some of the best practices from other people if you keep this topic taboo. So today, I want to start that conversation for you. And I brought on someone that I really admire that I want to help me do that. Today's guest grew up in Washington Heights in the Big Apple, that is New York City. And through his upbringing and exposure to the lifestyle around him, he realized the impact that financial literacy could have on someone's life, someone's relationships, and someone's overall success. So of course, he used that observation and that knowledge to better his own life, but he didn't stop there. He founded a organization called Templo Education, and their mission is to help communities, particularly low income in New York City, by partnering with schools, nonprofits to educate them on financial literacy and provide meaningful mentorships. So I really believe in his mission. I connect with him so much. I believe, just like he does, that a little bit of education in this area can make a huge impact on someone's life. So I'm hoping in today's episode, the two of us will spark your curiosity and hopefully generate some conversations that you can have with your loved ones, with your dependents, even yourself. So enough from me. I hope you enjoy my conversation with Louis Savery. Louis, my man, what's going on?
What's going on, Justin?
I am so pumped to have you on. It's crazy, our relationship. We've actually never even met in real life, but you and I got introduced through my girlfriend. She mentioned she was just like, dude, this guy, you got to meet him. Just hit him up, have a conversation with him, and you and I get together, call each other and have a conversation every 2 or 3 months. And I love the conversations that we have. They're always super engaging. And whenever I started my podcast, you went on my short list of people that I wanted to get on, because I always was like, dude, I need to be recording our conversations, because so many people could get so much value from some of the things that you're providing. And, I really value the fact that you're an action-oriented person, and you went out and started Templo. It's super inspiring. So I want to start there with our conversation. Particularly, I thought it'd be a really cool place to start with where the name Templo actually came from.
That's a good first question. Yeah, Templo has a lot of meaning behind it, but the temple, right, historically was always a place of inspiration, not only religiously, but where great thinkers also went, right? So I wanted to merge that background of religious influencers with the influencers who have just great ideas, right? And the Latin word for that is templum, and then templo is more like a Spanish feel to it. So I speak Spanish myself as well. So I think that name kind of connected well with the mission of what we want to do, which is bring the temple, a place of inspiration, to the actual students, staff, and everybody we're working with, right? Because I feel like a lot of people don't really know where to turn, and if you don't bring something to them, they will never kind of see it, right? Or, and that goes for me as well in different areas of life. I think we all need that, but it's a blessing when somebody brings something to you. So we want to actually bring the temple that's supposed to be a place to people, so that's kind of where the heart and inspiration behind it came.
And I mentioned in my intro, you're from New York City, born and raised in New York City, correct?
Yep, correct. Washington
And
Heights, Uptown.
yeah, that's awesome. So tell me a little bit more about your upbringing and how that influenced the mission of Templo Education.
Yeah, my upbringing really opened my eyes to a reality beyond what I even imagined, especially as I grew older and went to high school, got my first job and all that. I realized not everybody came from a neighborhood I came from, right? Because sometimes when you grew up in a certain place, you just feel like, oh, this is how the world is, you know.
Yeah.
Everybody grew up like this, you know. So in my mind, I'm like, oh, cool. So I realized I'm like, wow, there's a lot of things because of our neighborhood, lack of resources, just our environment overall that we did not learn, right? That we're never taught.
Could you give me a quick example?
Yeah, definitely. So an example is education system vary um, between districts, right? Certain districts have a better education system than others, right? And a lot of poor, underserved neighborhoods would have education system that's usually horrendous, right? Where the teachers don't really care because there's a lot of students bringing a lot of problems from home, right? Whether that be a substance abuse problem, broken home, divorced parents, whatever it might be. Um, and it makes it difficult also for the teachers. And there's a lot of factors, right? But one big one is that education system. And then when you have a poor neighborhood, the number one root, even before the education system, is your household, right? So if you have a lot of broken homes where the father's absent, only the mom is at home, and you never seen like a healthy dynamic, it affects the way you engage people. And where does a kid engage most? School. So you know, so then it leads to a ripple effect of not really navigating around life. So
Yeah.
yeah, so just me seeing that growing up helped me open my eyes to like, well, how can I play my part in wanting to change some of that, right? I can't go into homes and tell people stay married, right?
Yeah.
I can't go and really force anyone's hand, but I could kind of infiltrate and put our DNA in the team I'm working with in the system of our education, in our education system, in order to kind of influence some of that change. Yeah.
And in terms of making an impact, why did you feel like financial literacy was the area that you really wanted to focus on? You know, outside of you talked about some of the broken homes, and maybe it could have been focusing on how to have a healthy relationship. Why financial literacy?
Great question. Few reasons. Number one, the number one cause of divorce is finances.
Mm.
So that's a huge one. Number two, it's not taught in schools at all. Like like, and I say at all lightly because I'm sure we can find a few schools, but I'm pretty sure evidence will be on my side when you look overall. It's a very, very small percentage. And if they do teach, it doesn't really go in depth. And I feel like those are the life skills that connect to having a better life, right? So again, money doesn't solve everything, right? Which is why we have the mentorship side of our program, right? We're aware that we can teach people how to invest and become, let's say, millionaires. But we know the most important part is actual relational, right? And that becomes personal to me because I grew up in a broken home where my parents divorced when I was in junior high school. My mother was making an incredible amount of money, owning one of the first beauty salons in Washington Heights. There's probably over 100 now. My mom in late 80s was one of the first, made an incredible amount of money. My dad, not so much, but he managed money really well because of the lack, right? So I kind of got to see both ends. And I got to see like, wait, my mom has a lot, but the mismanaging has nothing to show for. Relationships weren't on top of her list because he was so busy with her business. But then I see my dad didn't make the most money, but ended up being a bit better in the as the years went by. Got a job at MTA, did electrician work, and made more money. But before that, came as an immigrant from the Dominican Republic and really just grinded, working in store, being a cab driver, cutting meat at the supermarket, just hustling his way up. But he valued it a lot. So he knew every cent. You know, he did everything for us, his kids, but he planned ahead with his money. And I saw how that benefited him. in light of him making less than maybe a lot of people around him.
Mm.
So it's both, you know. So
Yeah. Did you spend time in both households, or were you predominant in your mom or your dad's house?
yeah. So my parents divorced. I'm laughing because it was like a back and forth. Parents divorced, and I was really confused trying to figure out life. And I went to live with my mother because I know she's less strict. And I get
Priorities at that time. I love it.
yeah, like she's less strict. I get to like live life a little more, hang out with my friends a little later, and whatever. Um, so I was doing a back and forth until my dad like put the hammer down and said, "Look, you're either gonna live with me and stay with me, or you're either gonna live with your mom." You know, so um, I from there went to live with my mom, stayed there most of the time, but my dad was incredibly active in my life, you know, which helped me a lot growing up. So he'll come to parent teacher conference. I just remember seeing a lot of moms, and my dad was only the one. He'll, you know, still take me to park, take me to my basketball game. So he was really active, but because of the age and my mindset at the time, I wanted to live with my mom to have that what I called quote unquote freedom.
Okay.
So
That's fair. And I'm interested in your mom's story. You mentioned she made a ton of money, but maybe didn't have a ton to show for it at the end of the day. Do you know, knowing your mom, was there something in her life that influenced that habit? I know I want to jump into money habits with you a little bit deeper, but you know, what's your hypothesis on that?
um, yeah, there's definitely many things in life. So, for example, one of the things that come to mind is just the lack of education overall, right? So,
Hmm.
my mom grew up and um, had her business at an early age. Was the only girl that her dad, my grandfather, had. So, kind of spoiled in that way.
Hmm.
Coming here, she worked for a beauty salon, saved enough money, and then bought the beauty salon where she was working in. And from there, everything was uphill, at least money wise. Um, and the second part of that is she definitely did have bad habits. I heard you mentioned bad habits. So
Hmm.
one of them was just playing lottery a lot, right?
Hmm.
So my mom was making at that time, let's say $1,000 a week. She'll easily spend $500 in
Wow.
lottery, probably even more. You know, probably 1,000 easily in just a certain week.
Hmm.
So just playing numbers, giving away a lot of money, um, and not planning for the future. You know, sometimes it's hard when it's like when somebody makes $100 and then you get a job that pays you $1,000, right? If you mismanage that thousand, I mean that hundred, that thousand really doesn't change your habits.
Yeah.
It just emphasizes your bad habits, you know. So
Hmm.
the more money my mom made, I think the more it fueled into her bad habits,
Yeah.
right? So yeah, so it's like a
Hmm.
cycle.
Makes sense. So Templo, the organization you founded, the program focuses on, you know, junior high to high school students. I guess that age range is like 11 to 18.
Hmm.
What are your thoughts around focusing on that age group versus, you know, young adults or even, you know, adults in their 30s or 40s that might have more spending power?
Yeah. Uh, it's two things. One, we feel the earlier, the better, right? And you might ask, why not elementary school, maybe, right? So that's something we're still considering as well. So we're building curriculums around how that would look.
Hmm.
But around building the curriculums and really seeing what's important, we looked at ourselves and said, where can we start, right? And we look at our education system. We looked at the opportunities we have in different schools, and we felt starting with that age range right before college and right after elementary school would give that range of like when you first really start waking up to
Hmm.
some financial responsibility, whether that
Hmm.
be chores maybe. High school, you might get your first job. So my whole logic is even if you don't apply what you learn immediately, I hope to leave an impact in a lot of students, classrooms, and even staff members who can continue to teach this material long before we leave, because these are things that I think will come back to you when life hits, right? You ever
Hmm.
had an experience that you don't realize how important it was, but then down the road you're like, wow, I'm so glad I learned that, you
Yeah.
know. So I hope to have that impact.
I mean, you alluded a little bit to what you were interested and focused on during that age range, wanting to be with your mom because of the flexibility that gave on your lifestyle. And you know what those students are interested in there. So how do you resonate in your program? How do you resonate with students?
Yeah, so two ways. One, we try to see where we're going, right? What district we're in, what school. And I also connect it to my story. So I feel like a lot of my story connects in different ways to people, right? Not every area might connect. But we try to contextualize our lessons, right? So kids at that age, I was thinking about Jordans, let's say, right? Thinking about the news, so I try to contextualize some of the material I'm saving through Jordans. Another thing we're implementing in our lesson is would you rather questions where we engage with the kids. Everybody stands up and would you rather have $1 million or 100 every week for 13 years or whatever it might be. We try to engage so we get everybody moving, interacting to kind of separate ourselves from the average, because finance could be a bit boring.
Sure.
So the challenges every day I'm working on, although we have completed lessons, my goal every day as founder of Templo and for the team to really like innovate those lessons, make them more engaging, make it more fun.
What are some examples of some of the courses that you teach?
Yeah. So the first one we do is money mindset. So that's in every package, no matter what you pick, because we feel like teaching you new habits wouldn't mean much if your mindset around something wouldn't change. They wouldn't be lasting, right? So we try to infiltrate on the aspect of the mindset, right? And the mindset goes into like, why did I want to buy Jordans? I was younger, right? While other kids maybe my age were maybe thinking about something else, right? And that thought process comes down from your friends, association, from what influences you, your mentors, and your household. So all these things we're trying to see like what is important, right? What is an important mindset, right? And then from there we battle uphill to teach on budgeting. All right, so making that engaging.
Good luck.
Challenge. So saving, and then we go to the basics of saving. We go to credit card, the different interest rate and how that all looks. What's wise, what's not. We go to college, student debt, and things like that. We go to early investment in the stock market, where we teach an overview of stuff and different kind of funds and how that looks. Investment strategy. So we try. So this all depends on age, of course, right? You might be thinking like, we won't go to investment strategies with a sixth grader, fifth grader per se, but we try to go into certain lessons that are engaging and fun. And I feel like my job right now is to just open the eyes of people to see like, oh, learning this could be valuable. All right, you're about to learn. You learn a lot of stuff in life. You're always learning, right? At least you always want to be learning. So there's tons of things you learn, like adding finances to your repertoire while you're learning enhances you no matter what career you have. Right? It doesn't matter if you're hosting podcasts, or starting a business and you're an employee, and it's always going to benefit you. So this is why I feel like, going back to your first question, why I think that's so important. And how we chose that financial literacy and mentorship, because we feel like if you take some kind of control over that, you'll alleviate a lot of stress, but we don't want you to forget about the important relationships in your life as well. So we're trying to merge those two together. So.
Totally makes sense. And you started talking about this earlier, and I would love to prick at you a little bit more. I was curious on some financial statistics, so I just did some research a little bit before the show, and I saw on this website, financialeducatorscouncil.org, they took a survey in 2017 for young adults and asked them the question, what high school course would most benefit your life? And astoundingly, 51.4% responded with money management, which blows my mind away. And in my high school, there was I don't remember what it was called, but it was like financial literacy class, but it was an optional class. And for me, I've geeked out about this kind of stuff since I was like 14. I come from a household that like my dad was always kind of instilling some great financial prudence into me, but most people weren't required to take that. What's holding us back from filling that gap? And especially something like the education system, like why are we not touching this topic more?
Yeah, what's the age range of the people who got surveyed on that?
It was I think it was 18 to 24.
In a way, I feel like it's beneficial, but not beneficial for certain people to have everyone educated financially, right? So one is when we look at the societal and governmental structure, is like if a lot of people are financially literate, right? There's a lot of less things you can entice people with in our economy, right? It's a lot of less handouts that you can actually give out to people because the worth of what they believe in themselves in managing something, creating something, right? Whether we look at welfare system, maybe food stamps, and again, mind you, I want to be empathetic about the people who actually need that and go through hard times, right? Because those programs, just some history behind those programs are actually created for a step up, right? In order for you to go to the next level, right? It's like, hey, you're going through some hard times, just to let me here, take this $1,000 and keep at it with your dream, man. I want to see you succeed, right? And now, a few years later, you have your own thing because that helped you in those hard times, right? But now it's become for a lot of people, right? Well, for millions of people who are on it for years, it's almost like a comfort zone. Like, no, and I don't blame people. I think that can be me, that can be anyone, because imagine I'm giving you $1,000 every month for sitting in your couch. That incentivizes that risk and reward factor, de-incentivizes that. Like, it doesn't incentivize you to actually go out, chase your dream, provide, so I think it kills dreams when people are not financially literate because they see everything as an obstacle. Right. So there's a lot of things you can do when you're financially literate if you plan well, and you are disciplined with your finances, right? Again, more money is not always better, I tell people, right? Better discipline is what actually is better, right? More money is just, hey, just feed, like I said, a little earlier story about my parents. Like I can feed the angel or the beast. Whatever your habits are, more money is actually going to feed that, right? You don't magically change. So yeah, and I think the second part of your question to get to that layer is our education system. There's a lot of it. It's so intertwined with government. Like I said, to be honest, there's not a lot of freedom to really teach what you think is important, but what society and the government and our culture deems important. And a lot of it, in my opinion, is useless class. I know I say that lightly, but it's things I will never use in our life, and it frustrates me, right? So I'm not throwing away school. There's certain things you have to go to school for, but a lot of it is like, I look back and like, why was I learning all this? Imagine if I put that time learning the subjects that I've never used in my life. Like sometimes it frustrates me because I never, ever use certain things I learned. And I'm like, what, is it just for knowledge? People need to survive out here. People actually, which is one of our core values, is wisdom. We actually want to be able to apply that knowledge you learn in the real world. That's what I call wisdom. If you're able to apply knowledge, you're a wise man. If you know a lot, well, congratulations. That's cool. But that doesn't get you too far knowing a lot, so.
Sure. So Louis, I want to give you a promotion and put you in charge of this job, this task, this problem of addressing the 51% of people that want money management. So if you were in charge of this, essentially you have endless resources. I mean, in terms of what you can get, what ideally would that look like if you were tasked to bring financial literacy into the education system?
That's a great question. I think the first thing I would do is, in all honesty, really what I'm doing now, right? But it is a game changer when you said I have unlimited resources, right?
Yeah.
So I'll still have the heart and desire to do what I'm doing now. And I think what would change is I would really surround myself with more people who know even more about things that I don't know about, right? Because I launched this and I've educated myself enough, or I feel confident enough on a lot of financial topics, but I'm continuing to learn, right? Which I love this process. But I want to continue to surround myself with people in other areas, not only with finances, but in effectively moving, let's say, in the education system. Strategies to launching programs in efficient and effective ways, and dig deeper personally, right? This is a big one, in the process of working with the families, right? Single parent homes, broken homes, like how do we infiltrate that and educate the parents? Because you can do a lot when you go back home, that's where you spend most of your time. So
Yep.
how do we educate those parents and show them why we're educating them, right? And the trajectory. Everybody wants their kids to do well in the future, right? So incentivizing them in that sense and seeing how that looks would be great.
And a lot of what I'm pulling out from you, and it's something we've talked about a lot with your program, is your big emphasis on mentorship and why mentorship is so important. And during our prep call for this, I quoted you saying, "I don't want to teach and then leave." And you really do want to instill, some of this. So why do you believe mentorship could be the glue that makes this all stick?
Yeah. So yeah, we always say we don't want to just teach and leave. We actually want to educate and then mentor, right? And I think the mentor side of it is just really instilling some of what you already learned, and the way you instill that is actually living it out, right? So if I teach you on budgeting, right, and you have a worksheet and stuff to actually do, you might not want to do it. But when you have a mentor there, and you see the fruits maybe of his work, right, and how he's living, right, that's one that inspires you to do the hard thing for the future, right? And then when you're held accountable, right, when you something beautiful happens when you're held accountable, right? No man is an island. Right, I love that phrase. Like no man literally is alone, right? Like the most successful people in this world, they didn't do it alone. It might look like it, maybe when you look deeper, it's like, wow, this guy had a lot of help, and rightly so. He didn't. He still had the vision, right? He still had the drive, right? He still had the fervor to continue to move forward, but he had a team around him, right? So I feel like we don't want to go into a program, leave, and say, hey, good luck, and you're going back to your let's say shitty situation at home and community where you feel discouraged. So how do we continue to inspire you in that moment, right? We maybe can't change the whole circumstance, right? But that mentorship continues to emphasize what you learn and inspire you to continue on that journey. So I think without mentorship, I run the risk of it just being a very interesting class that you enjoyed. Right? I don't want to be an interesting class you enjoy. I kind of want to be a lasting impact where we continue to emphasize the vision through our mentors to a point where maybe you might get annoyed, but at least as you remember us in a way that you can go back and kind of recall some of this information.
To dive a little bit deeper into mentorship, if people don't have the privilege to be at a school where your program's at, and maybe even bigger than financial literacy, what are your thoughts on seeking mentorship? And then once you found a great mentor, how do you maximize that relationship?
That's one of the most challenging things, and it always depends what neighborhood you're in, what school you actually went to, what programs you're surrounded by. But I think you have to be intentional. There's no way around this. So intentionality is the word that comes to mind, where you have to actually surround yourselves around people, whether that be, now we have tons of resources, right, through social media, and going in and really connecting people, or you connecting with people. And the quickest way to do it is actually trying to provide a service, whether that be for free, especially when you're a teenager, right? If you're able to provide some service for free to somebody you look up to, or an organization that you feel is doing good work and all that, you know how much you're gonna learn, and you're not wasting no time. You're just gaining, right?
Yeah.
You're helping that person, but you're probably gaining even more because you're young, you have time on your side, and it's so much. So intentionality is key. And oddly enough, I feel like that needs to be taught, because if you don't know the value of connecting with people, you won't do it, right?
Hmm.
Which is what we want to do in the mentorship side of things here. So
Yeah.
yeah, I would say being intentional, in actually putting yourself out there, right? Being
Hmm.
bold, taking risk, um, yeah, and connecting with people you admire. Getting
Yeah.
a list of people you admire, what organizations do that, how can I reach out, how can I help for free, how can I volunteer? Like, there's no way around that hard work, to be honest. It's not like, I don't think a mentor ever appears. It's really just putting in that work of exposing yourself, which is a scary thing, right? You're like,
Hmm.
hey, I want to help with this. I'm out here. You might not be good at it yet. Or if you think you're good at it, even better, right? You get to provide even a better service. But the answer is really putting yourself out there.
You said mentorship doesn't really appear. I almost think mentorship develops as well. It's like you don't walk. I'm not gonna walk up to you and Lewis and be like, "Hey, Lewis, will you be my mentor?" That's not really how it
Exactly.
works. Someone really intrigues you, and you spend time with them to show and guide them throughout the
Mhm.
path, and they reciprocate in terms of their energy, in terms of how they think through, and they're listening to you, and you feel like both sides of the relationship is gaining value. So I really do
Yeah, yeah.
think some of those mentorships just really develop out of time. Like a
Mhm.
lot of mentorship programs for me, like the most effective ones are the people that I just naturally ended up, moving into our mentorship
Mhm.
relationship. So when that happens, when somebody has one of those mentors, even if it's through a formal program or informally, as I was just explaining, how do they maximize that relationship and really make sure that both sides are getting the most out of it?
Yeah, yeah. So you said something that I agree with 1,000%, right? So it does develop, right? Which is why the best mentorships have an aspect of friendship, right?
Hmm.
There's many ways to do it, but again, I'm going back to intentionality, right? So to maximize that is actually, if I'm around, like for example, there's a few people I want to connect with, right? When I've connected with these people, like a good example is my mentor now. When he gave me that first meeting, I came in ready.
Mm,
like I had my plan. I want to show you what I'm working on already. I want to show you that I'm not playing games. I'm not going to waste your time.
mm,
I got certain questions ready, so I'm ready to like pick your brain. It's almost like I approach it like this might be the last time
mm.
that I might be with you right now. So let me take advantage of this. But you always want to be yourself as well, right? You don't want to come kind of like want interviewing someone, right? So it's the
Yeah.
balance between, look, be yourself, but be genuinely interested. And they see that.
Hmm.
Anybody wants. So if somebody comes up to you, hey Justin, I love podcasts you're doing. I got a few questions for you. Like, if you're really in love with what you're doing, like you're gonna be honored to sit
Yeah.
with that person and be like, you know what? Let me share a few things that I've learned. I don't know everything, but I think this can help you. That
Mm,
feels good because
yeah.
we all want to give back. So I feel like when you to maximize that, when you show that urgency, to connect, to be there, but also be yourself, right? When you mix all that, when you're actually being yourself and trying to connect with somebody, generally coming prepared, people see that effort.
I want to jump back into a topic we started to explore there in terms of habits. What are you mentioned it was $100 or $1,000. It doesn't really matter. How you spend money isn't really about money. It's really about some of those habits that you learned at an early age, and the environment and the impact around you. Um, what are some of the habits that you traditionally see, that you might be working with someone either to unravel, or sometimes it's not even redirecting someone, but necessarily hey, making some awareness around this habit and then putting a process in place of how you control that habit.
Yeah, yeah. Um, it really goes back to value, right? Like, what do you value is going to dictate how you spend your money, right? And I think valuing money itself to a high degree could be a bad habit,
Hmm.
could lead to a bad habit, right? So What do you value, right? So, for example, early on, years back, I was going from job to job. Um, Worked at a hospital, then worked at a car dealership, supermarket, internship. I was like all over. I was just like, and I was kind of desperate for money.
Mhm.
I ended up going into this whole business ordeal. Won't get into it. It was like sketchy and all. It was like a little crazy, but got into that. And then a few months later, the business they were working on went down, and I ended up having to file bankruptcy.
Mm.
Right. So that goes into what I valued. I valued money so high that a few $100s a month, I just needed it.
Mm.
Right. Because what was coming in already, I just didn't think is enough. Well, part of it was I just wasn't managing it well, right? I was valuing different things. When I look back, I was spending my money on whatever I wanted, right? I wasn't intentional about saving, right? I didn't budget, aka tell my money where to go, right? I didn't do that. I didn't say, hey, this here. I didn't pay myself first. Little things like that that can change everything. Um, I didn't do none of that, right? So the aspect is the question is really what do you value,
Mm.
all right? So there's a list of things where you get deep into conversation where the mentorship, friendship, relationship comes in, of what do you value, all right? So if you value, if you're really insecure about how you look and you think the clothes you wear are going to make you feel and look a certain way, you're going to your money is going to show you, right? The money really dictates where your heart is,
Mm.
right? The money usually follows your heart. What do you really value, right? That's why they say when you look at someone's bank account, you can really see what they value,
Mm.
right? Because money is just a tool for you to get things you value, right? Whether you're buying somebody a coffee or you're buying yourself a BMW, or these are you're using the money as a tool, which is all it
Yeah.
is. Money is just a tool. You're using that tool to give yourself the kind of life you want. So it's about getting those walls down about what do you value, right? Those are those deep, um, intimate conversations that lead to transformation, right?
Mm.
Those conversations actually lead you to think about, you know what, this is what I want to plan for the future.
Mm.
All right, it's hard to plan for the future when you can't see the future. All right,
Yeah.
so I don't blame people for not planning for the future. If you grew up in a kind of hopeless situation, I'm not mad. I'm not. Oh, you have bad habits. That's not going to change them.
Mm.
You grew to a hopeless situation, so you look at life in the lens of hopelessness. So if you do that, saving in itself, it's almost impossible.
I loved the phrase you used earlier in the show, pay yourself first. What's a good habit in terms of paying yourself first that that teenager that probably doesn't have a lot of immediate expenses that paycheck needs to go to? What's a good habit they can start with that paycheck around paying themselves first?
Yeah, this is where goals come into place. Like it's really hard to save money if you don't have goals. Like for example, like the reason people are so effective saving for a wedding, but then horrible saving when they're married, is
Mm.
because that goal is so clear. You know that you're like you can see, you can smell it, you can see the flowers, you can see her coming down. So it's like, all right, we're gonna save for this. Let's do it. It's a real specific goal, and it's something encouraging. But once you lose sight of goals, right? So again, when you get married, let's say if you don't have no specific goals, it don't matter if you did it before. Like, what are you saving now? You're not getting married twice. You're not saving for another wedding. You're saving for something else. But what is that, right? So the
Mm.
advice would be when you have your first job, have goals, right? Even if what you're saving for might not be meaningful, quote unquote, right? And that's me talking from my perspective, right? Everybody, it depends what's meaningful for you, but um, you want to be able to buy a pair of sneakers every month. And to do that, you need to save $30 a check, right? Um, when you have that goal and you name it fresh kicks, right? That's what we call it in New York, kicks, right? But
Yeah.
fresh kicks would be the goal, right? If you have that goal, you have the money amount and what you need to save. You're gonna be more encouraged to put that money aside when you look at the title and like, oh wow, all right, yeah, let me put 30 more because I'm almost there. It feels good, that sense of
Hmm.
accomplishment. In every arena of life, I'm just scaling it down to goals, right? So I feel goals is number one thing, like, and that's harder to do when you're younger, right? So that's the
Yeah.
challenge right here. At that age, you're not here having a set of goals on your wall and saying you're going to take over the world. That usually comes later in life when you find more meaningful things. That's why I say it's not about what you find, and I don't care what you find meaningful, right? It could be a fork and knife set or whatever. It could be anything really, to be honest. But it could be clothes every week. But if you have a specific goal, it will show you and give you that discipline to be like, oh, I could save for whatever I want. And
Hmm.
eventually you'll be like, oh, I can actually, wow, I could save for a car. Yeah. Wow, that's
Yeah.
going to be 3 years. Okay, I just got to keep doing what I did for 3 years. I
Hmm.
only done it for 3 months,
Mm.
but I know if I keep this, so it's like a mental game where you're training your mind and it gets stronger. It's the same. It's the same mentality of what you do with 100, with 1,000. I believe if you can save 1,000, just in a matter of time before you do that 10 times and save 10,000.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying? So it's the same game. It's just 10,000. You don't want to start with that if you never saved 100.
Yeah.
All right, I can't sit here and be like, I'm gonna save $10,000.
Mm.
Never ever saved $100 in my life. So that's where you build your belief system and habits and continue to climb that ladder. Yeah.
Fair. And what I'm really pulling out of that thread, and almost going back to the mentorship piece to it as well, is just intentionality. There's a difference between getting a paycheck and then going and buying the sneakers you want, and intentionally deciding before the paycheck comes that you want to save up for those sneakers, getting that paycheck, and then buying those sneakers. Very different in a
Mm-hmm.
very minute way, but the intentionality is so key. And that's really what a budget is just a stack of different goals. This is my goal for my rent, this is my goal for
Mm-hmm.
clothes, this is my goal for food. It is a list of goals that you
And
intentionally set with the money that you hope to come in, and how you're going to distribute it.
and let me tell you the big difference of that right there. One is discipline, the other one is impulse, right?
Mm,
So when you're
mm,
doing stuff by impulse, yeah, 1 week with your paycheck you buy sneakers, but whatever you like and whatever your mind comes up with in the next few months, you're gonna buy that right away. So you're not building discipline, right? And then that could be healthy as long as you don't have, let's say, enough bills or you're not too stressed. But when life really hits, those habits, impulse habits that were not a big deal, right? Where you could go outside, you could buy Sprite, right? When you were younger, you could buy Sprite, you could buy a T-shirt. Summertime, you want to buy a new tank top, you just buy whatever you want, right? You got no bills. But those same habits, you use that, right? When you're moving out, when you're in a relationship, um, those habits become very detrimental because those are impulse, right? So that's a big difference. Yeah, you have the money, but when you plan, the money controlled you.
mm.
When you didn't plan, the money controlled you. I mean, but when you plan, you control that money. You actually
Yeah.
told your money where to go. You're like in full control when you're planning.
As we're kind of nearing our closing here, something I mentioned, or something I noticed while I was doing some research on you on Templo's website, you have a ton of quotes from, Thomas Edison, Thomas Jefferson, C.S. Lewis, like a lot of cultural and historical influence. That's super curious. I'm super curious. Is there a historical figure that's had a major impact on you?
Yeah. So the biography of Martin Luther King for me was amazing, and a lot of readings of C.S. Lewis
Hmm.
and how he merges the Christian worldview with the everyday worldview, how to merge both of those two and live in this world. For me, um, really, really inspires me every time. So for me, reading, I realized like this now, really, like I always kind of knew, but I always jumped around, like reading different kind of things. But I love reading biography. Like right now, it just came in today. Shoe Dog,
Yeah.
so of Nike,
I.
the
Yep.
founder of Nike. So like I'm really excited to jump into that, right?
Mm,
So because for me, when storytelling is such a big thing, right? Which is why I want to emphasize when I'm pitching Templo to schools ideas, like I want to story tell and explain to them where I come from, why I have a passion, because I think that's what draws people in, right? And every time I hear someone's story, it follows a similar trend. Like, nobody really had it easy, but I'm inspired that these people actually rose to the occasion, right? So like it really inspired me. And I'll probably read a few pages tonight, and I'm probably gonna sit there, call my girlfriend, and just talk her ear out about like how great this guy, how he accomplished it. I'm like, can you believe he started? Because it never gets old to me. I just figured more possibilities, and I feel like people don't have enough stories in front of them. That's another part of it, right? You don't have enough story of people that actually did it.
Yeah.
And you get to the details, you realize, oh, like it sounds cliche, but a lot of these people are just like us. Like I learned that more and more. There's actually nothing special about these people other than they're a little crazier and obsessed with their vision than you are.
Yep. Before asking my last question, where is the best people to connect with you in Templo Education if they want to learn more about what you're doing?
Yeah, so TemploEducation.com. So Templo with an old TemploEducation.com. So that's our website. So we're continuously updating that, giving people more information. Our Instagram is Templo_education. So you can find us there as well, being more active on that as well. And most of the updates, as we're getting ready to work on newsletters, monthly news, all that's all really going to come through promotion through social media and connecting with people, me personally sending things to people, and our website. So that's kind of like our main two drives right now, because everything else is really going to branch out of that.
And anything in particular you're looking for, any help that you need, or anything if someone's listening and they're trying to figure out how they can help you, anything in particular you're looking for right now?
Yeah, so if you're connected with nonprofits, schools, we can definitely show our pitch deck ideas so you kind of see what we can bring to the table.
Perfect. Awesome.
Definitely would love to talk to you.
Yeah. My final question for you actually came from a little inspiration from your website, your blog post. You mentioned you had this beautiful quote in there. You said, an eagle is made for flight, a fish is made for water, a lion lives for the hunt. What are you designed to do? So I want to reflect that question back to you and ask you, Louis, what do you believe that you're designed to do?
Ooh, threw it back at me. Okay. I like that.
Yeah.
Drop the mic. I think I'm in this world, and I'm seeing it more clearly, to really have an impact through reforming education. I know that seems like a huge task, but I think a big part of it is reforming not only the education system, but the lens through which we see education, right? I think there's a problem if you think of education and you only think school. I think that's a hindrance overall. But if you think education and you think much more, I think you're ahead of the game, right? So I think I'm here, and the people around me, the people I'm gathering myself, are really to bring the vision of making education practical, bringing wisdom behind the knowledge that we're learning.
And I will be right along your side there in terms of opening people's expansion to the fact that education is more than just school. That is exactly why I do what I want right here. And that, at 22, at 23, at 21, whenever you are done with college, that does not mean you are done with learning. That does not mean you are done with education. And I am really wanting to be someone's introduction into a better life. So you and I have very, very similar goals there. So Louis, I appreciate you being on the show. You have such a poetic way of explaining things, so thank you for sharing that with my audience. And this will hopefully not be our last conversation. So thank you so much for coming on the show, man.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it. This was great.
Welcome back, everybody. Hopefully you enjoyed that episode with Louis. I love Louis and his organization and the mission behind his organization. I am a believer as well that a little bit of education around financial literacy can really change someone's life. What resonated with me the most in our conversation when he was talking about how you don't need more money, you just need a better discipline around your money. I have seen that to be true in my life, as I know tons of people that make a lot of money that don't have a lot to show for it, and then plenty of people that don't make an extraordinary amount of money but have everything they need in their life. So when he was talking about his mom versus his dad, that really resonated true with me. What resonated with you? I'd love to hear from you. I'm on Instagram at Justin Lee Peters. Lee is Lee. I'd love to hear your big aha from this episode. And I would love if you went and supported Lewis and his organization. Once again, he is on Instagram at Templo_Education. Templo is TEMPLO. Huge shout out to Lewis. Thanks again for giving me so much of your time and energy to share so much great wisdom with my audience. Also, big shout out, as always, to my little brother for the intro music and my better half and my producer, Gabby Dimekey. That's all. There's another episode that will be out not next Monday, but the following Monday. I'm really excited about this one. I will share a spoiler on Instagram closer to the date, so be on the lookout for that. That's all, everybody. Hopefully you stay safe out there. I'll see you next time in the sandbox.